Shalom. My name is Sean Devoy, and this is what is the Talmud? One of two. Let me show you what I mean by. It's basically an apologetics on the Talmud itself. Essentially, the fact of the matter is, there's a lot of how would I put it? Fake news about it. I just thought I would set the record straight. This is going to be part one of two. So, first things first, we're going to go through Mishnah Gittin, an entry. First things first. It's in Mishnah Gittin 910 A and B. It says, Beit Shammai says, a man may not divorce his wife unless he finds out about having engaged in a matter of forbidden sexual intercourse, or rather, davar erva. That's the Hebrew phrase, i.e., she committed adultery or is suspected of doing so, as it is stated, because he has found some unseemly manner, ervat davar, in her, and he writes her a scroll of severance, Deuteronomy 24, verse 1. Basically, this is the house of Shammai, their ruling on said, what was it called? On said law in the Torah. It continuing forward, Beit Hillel says he may divorce her even if it's due to a minor issue, because she burned or over salted his dish, as it is stated, because he found some unseemly matter in her, because that he may find any type of shortcoming in her. Rabbi Akiva said he may divorce her even if he found another woman who is better looking than her and wishes to marry her, as it is stated in the verse, and comes to pass that she finds no favor in his eyes. That's their view of Deuteronomy 24, verse 1. All right, first things first. Basically, what you have here, just from the plain literal reading, you have three groups of people who basically had a debate. And one basically said, you cannot divorce unless this occurred. The other one said, you can divorce for any shortcoming. What was it called? The other one, Rabbi Akiva, also stated that you can divorce if you find another woman who's good looking. Anyways, the point being, this is where we get into my point that there's a lot of fake news. First things first, this is what we call the debate argument. Since we see that there is at least three different views of the verse itself of Deuteronomy 24, verse 1, means that there wasn't consensus, basically. So since they didn't have consensus on this matter, it means that they weren't united together. Obviously, they weren't, and since they weren't united on said matters, well, then obviously they didn't agree. It also means that they didn't have a total hive mind regarding what this says. So it could be that some people would go along with the Beit Shammai position, some would go with the Beit Hillel position, and so on and so forth. Who's to say which one is correct in regards to that? Since they debated, they would never have a consensus on the whole matter. it means that they would not. It basically means that they would not agree, or rather, that they didn't have a, what was it called? That they didn't have a unified position, and thus, therefore, they weren't required to believe in the same view. The different versions argument. The Mishnah, so basically, there are various different versions of the Talmud itself. There's the Mishnah, the Tosefta, there's many different variations of it. Not each one is equal. So to say that you can just point to a verse inside of the Talmud and say, aha, right there, that's what it says, and therefore you are required to believe it. No, you can't do that. All right? Basically, there's a context to each and every one of them. All right? Since each one has a context to it, then basically I can actually point to a more authoritative one, like let's say halakha, or perhaps even Mishnah, and say that the other one is subordinate to it, and so on and so forth. And basically, let's follow this for a moment. Let's use an analogy. Think of the Mishnah as a codification of the interpretations of the Supreme Court. All right? The Supreme Court gave interpretations of the amendments to the Constitution of America. Those interpretations have no merit or have no bearing of the other aspects, or rather legal discussions in, let's say, law school, or perhaps even state law, or this, or whatever. They're not one and the same. So, therefore, it's not like you can just point to one example and say, aha, you are required to believe in that. No, I don't have to. So, there you go. In fact, the heretic argument. There are times when, as I pointed out, since they didn't always agree, there were times that a good majority of the people went with one opinion, the majority opinion. And there were times when one opinion was in the minority. And when they were in the minority, well, then basically you couldn't necessarily go along with when one opinion was in the minority, well, then it was in the minority. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you are required to believe in the minority opinion or this or this. As I stated, there wasn't consensus. There was about 200 to 2,000 years and stuff like that of said arguments or whatever. In fact, the point that I'm making is that regarding all of these, the heretic debate, or rather the minority opinion, the orthodoxy opinion, is this. Martin Luther basically stated that the Jews shouldn't own property and should be confined to ghettos. Basically, he came up with the 5-point plan that, what was his name? That Hitler followed, aside from murdering them inside of the gas chambers. Does that mean you can blame all of Christianity for that? Of course not. Mao Zedong, he was an atheist. He killed a good majority of the Chinese population. Is Mao Zedong, because of the fact that he is an atheist, does that mean that that all atheists are just like Mao Zedong? No. Forget it. Just like this whole notion, just because of the comments of one or several heretics in Judaism, doesn't mean that you can't blame all of Judaism for it, unless you're a firm believer in rules for thee, but not for me.